Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Be Bold Sports. I'm your host, CJ Hill, and today we're going to talk about the Western Conference first round of the NBA playoffs. I'm excited. As we know, the Western Conference is more exciting than the Eastern Conference, at least to me it is. You know, the Eastern Conference, the first round of Eastern Conference, if you check my previous podcast, it was exciting, but it was more sweeps in the Eastern Conference than there was in the Western Conference. So we're going to begin with the San Antonio Spurs versus the Denver Nuggets, the number 7 seed versus the number 2 seed. And I'll be honest, I remember telling my friends and family that I believe that the San Antonio Spurs experience would triumph the young, athletic Denver Nuggets. And lo and behold, I was wrong. You know, I humbly admit and I humbly say that, yes, I was wrong, which is fine because it was great basketball. This was by far one of the honestly unexpected, unanticipated series of the NBA playoffs. For the Nuggets to come out and win this series four games to 3, to win the 7, to take it to 7 games, not only to take it to 7 games to the Spurs, but to win it, I was impressed. I was really impressed. Though the Spurs have a different group, the Ginobili, the Duncan, and the Parker era is officially over. Though we know that era is over, we still have a coach and Popovich, Greg Popovich, who is a great coach. And I really expected that the coaching of Greg Popovich would get this team to climb to climb over the Denver Nuggets. But again, they did not exceed. They did not accomplish that goal. So the Denver Nuggets, they won this series, and again, it was a great series. It went 7 games. You have the Spurs, they took the first game, and then the second game you have the Nuggets, they came right back at it and they took the second game. And then the third game, you have the Spurs, they took it. It was a back and forth type of battle. You had the Spurs take the third game. You have the Nuggets take the fourth game. You had the Nuggets take the fifth game, and then the Spurs take the sixth game. And then you have the Nuggets take the 7th game. So it was a back and forth type of game. The Spurs at times could not find an offensive rhythm. At times they were just not, honestly, offensively gel. They didn't gel together offensively, especially in that 7th game. To see that they only had 86 points, only in the 7th game and the 5th game, then the Spurs failed to reach 100 points, which is surprising because you have a scorer like DeMar DeRozan, on the team. It was surprising to see that, but nevertheless, congratulations to the Denver Nuggets. I'm excited to see them in the second round because they are a young, energetic, athletic team at that. Besides Nikola Jokic, besides him, the rest of the team is very athletic. So it's going to be exciting to see how they play in the second round. So let's look at how the Denver Nuggets did. You have Nikola Jokic, who is a MVP candidate, whether you believe it or not, whether you agree with it or not. He is averaging 23 points per game, 12 rebounds, 9 assists. He's almost averaging a triple-double while shooting. This is your big man. While shooting 33% from the 3-point range and 48% from field goal range. And then you have the likes of Jamal Murray, Gary Harris, Paul Millsap, Malik Beasley, Will Barton, Monte Morris. This team is a collective group. It's a collective effort. Even though Nikola gets all the praise most of the time, this is a team group, and they win in a team way. And then on the other side, you have DeMar DeRozan, LaMarcus Aldridge, and then from there, nobody really stepped up. DeMar DeRozan averaged 22 points throughout the series. He didn't shoot any threes. And here's an interesting fact for anybody who may or may not know this. DeMar DeRozan did not shoot any threes in this entire season. I read an article that he is actually trying to transform his game while playing with the San Antonio Spurs. He came into this year, and by the end of this year, DeMar DeRozan took 282 less threes than he did year prior while in Toronto, while playing for the Toronto Raptors. So since he's left the Raptors, he took 282 less threes. That's 282 threes he did not take this year, which to me in the playoffs, that kind of hurt them because as we know, we're in a league You know, we're in the you live by the three, die by the three league type now, and for him to not take not 1 3, it's impressive, and it's bittersweet because to average 22 points without taking any threes is quite impressive. But at times, I see nothing wrong with taking 2 or 3 here and there, like Giannis. And then you have LaMarcus Aldridge, who's been consistent since his days with Portland. He averaged 20 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists. Only shot 27% from threes, which I prefer him not to be behind that 3-point line if you can stop him from going that far, but just to keep him, you know, below the 3 and getting him in his money spots. And to me, the golden nugget or the hidden treasure for the Spurs going forward, which I'm excited about, is Derek White. You're like, Derek who? CJ, who's Derek White? Derek White is he's going on his second year. He debuted with the Spurs October 18, 2017. He was actually drafted by the Spurs in the first round. He was the 29th overall pick out of the University of Colorado. I never heard about this man, never knew this man. As much as I love sports, as much as I love all types of basketball, especially NBA basketball, especially college basketball, he was a sleeper to me. And for this guy, to me, like I said, he is the hidden treasure, the hidden gem for the San Antonio Spurs going forward. I look forward to seeing what Greg Popovich is going to do with Derek White moving forward, because he, man oh man, going on 2 years, coming off of a rookie year and playing the way that he did in this playoffs. Though, when you look at his overall average, he only scored 15 points per game, which is not bad for a second-year player. 3 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot almost 30% from 3, a humble 29%. And field goal range, he actually shot 54% from the field goal, from the field, which isn't too bad. But the biggest thing that has me excited about Derek White is the 36 points that he dropped in Game 3 on the Nuggets. 36 points, and he didn't really hold back in these playoff series, but to drop 36 points in a playoff game on your second year, come on, man. He can only grow from here as long as he continues to perfect his craft. So I look forward to seeing, the type of player that he's going to transform into, and I look forward to seeing what the Spurs are going to do, not only in the offseason but next year, because the Spurs are always right there every year. They're not contenders for the past, ever since the Duncan, Parker, and Manu Ginobili era has been over. They're not necessarily contenders, but they're definitely in the talk of the playoffs. So, again, a great series. Congratulations to the Nuggets. As we know, the Nuggets end up pairing off. Against the Trailblazers. So now we're going to look at the series of the Trailblazers versus Oklahoma City Thunder. And I believe, like I've said in my very first podcast, that this series, Oklahoma City versus the Portland Trailblazers, to me was the most anticipated, the most exciting series of the playoffs. The most exciting series of the playoffs. You have, 4 All-Stars? To me, we have 4 All-Stars in this series. You have Damian Lillard, you have Paul George, you have Russell Westbrook, you have CJ McCollum, and man, oh man, did they not all disappoint. Well, to some degree, of course, there's some disappointment on one side, but overall, this to me was still an exciting series. Portland being the higher seed, they came away winning the series 4-1. Oklahoma City, of course, they won the third game. Their first game home, they won. And they put a beat down on the Blazers. Westbrook came away with 33 points, and it was a good game overall. And for this series, of course, Russell Westbrook, man, he's a baller. He is a baller. He averaged, excuse me, I'm sure he averaged a triple-double. Let's see here. Russell Westbrook averaged 22 points, 8 rebounds, almost 9 rebounds. He averaged 8.8 rebounds, 10 assists. So he almost averaged a triple-double. But here's the problem. He shot 32% from three-point range and 36% from field goal range. And we'll talk about Russell Westbrook a little bit here in a second. So then you have Paul George, who has actually had a lingering injury to his shoulder. And he still, honestly, even with the shoulder injury, he outplayed Russell. And he played phenomenal. In 40 minutes, he averaged 28 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists. He shot 31% from 3 and 43% from the field goal range. He played pretty good. He played pretty good. There were times where, like I said in my very first podcast, it was dreadful when Paul George is shooting inconsistently, and I think that's what happened to the Oklahoma City. There just were times where they could not score and they were inconsistent in their scoring abilities, and not only that, but also getting stops. And I'm still impressed with what they're going to do going forward. So again, back to Russell Westbrook, I just want to say, and I'm going to say this in my next podcast about, what happens with these losing teams. What do they do now? Where do they go now? And you know what? There you go. That's going to be another podcast. I'm not going to speak on that. We'll see. What we'll stay tuned for the next podcast for these teams that lost, what happened, or what should they do, or what will happen going forward. So that'll be my next podcast after this one. So again, and then you had the helping cast, Dennis Schroeder. He didn't disappoint. 13 points off the bench. He averaged shooting 30% from 3-point. You would like to see that number a little higher. 45% from the field, and that's really much help. That's really the most help you got. Grant, he came with 11 points, but overall, he just, if anything, probably didn't shoot as much as he should have. He only took 40 shots altogether versus the 100 shots that Paul George took and the 111 shots that Westbrook took. And then he only took 23s, and you just would like to see, because he shot 45% from 3-point range. So you would kind of like for him to shoot a little bit more, but nevertheless, that series was exciting. And then on the flip side, you have Damian Lillard, who averaged 33 points, 4 rebounds, 6 assists. He shot 48% from 3-point range. It's like the man couldn't miss from behind the arc, especially when he shot further from beyond the arc. And then he shot 46% from the field. And then you have CJ McCollum, 45% from the field, 44% from 3. He averaged 24 points. Paul George averaged more than him. And then 5 rebounds, 4 assists. And then, here's the thing. When you look at these stats, you have for the Blazers, Enes Kanter averaged 13 points. Mo Harkless averaged 11 points. Aminu averaged 10 points. Like, this was a team effort, but nevertheless, it was a team effort led by Damian Lillard with the 33 points. And as we know, Damian Lillard, he balled out, man. He balled out, especially in that 5th game, where he dropped 50 points. Not only did my man drop 50 points, but he also hit the game winner. Oh, man, behind the arc. He was a couple feet behind the arc. Man, with Paul George, 6'8", guarding him, his long, linky behind. He was guarding him, and Damian Lillard hit the game-winning shot, not only to win the game, but to win the series. And that was quite impressive. That's the second time that Damian Lillard has not only won a game with the game-winning shot, but also has won the series. He has done that twice. Now against Oklahoma City, and also another time against the Houston Rockets, where he won not only the game, but the whole entire series. So, I told you guys, Damian Lillard is a baller, man. He's a superstar. He's definitely slept on. He's definitely one of the NBA's best kept. I'm not going to say the best kept secret, but he's slept on. He's underrated. He's underrated. Compared to Westbrook. Westbrook to me is overrated, but Damian Lillard is underrated. Not that many people give him his props like they should. But it was, nevertheless, again, it was a great series. I was excited, and my starstruck between Paul George and Damian Lillard, man, it was good. It was real good, and I was just excited to see good basketball on both sides. So that was the Trailblazers versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. So as we see here, that's in the second round is going to be the Nuggets versus the Blazers. And for the Nuggets and the Spurs, I picked the Spurs to win, and they lost. For the Blazers and Oklahoma City, I picked the Blazers to win, and they did win. I actually had this series going 7 games, to be honest. But I think if Paul George was not hurt, I think this series would have went. Blazers still probably would have came out, but it wouldn't have went 5 games. Let's just be honest. And so the Nuggets versus the Blazers is going to be a great series to watch in the second round, and we'll talk about that more. Not in this next podcast, but the podcast after. So I'm excited about that series. Well, guys, that sums up the first part of the Western Conference. Stay tuned for the second part. But before you go, be sure to like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to get notifications of new and upcoming videos. And as always, thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of Be Bold Sports.